You direct that you use the words of Jordan Abrams to investigate the case and form an opinion?
Not only his words, but the words of other statements, but I did use his statement.
I see. Now, Jordan Abrams told you that she was standing on the top step when she fired the first shot, correct?
That is what she said.
So, but you didn't trust her opinion on this, did you?
It's not that I didn't trust it. I just didn't find the evidence to go that way.
So you were willing to rely on some of her statements, but not others?
Some parts were true, some parts were not.
I see. Now, you also claim that Chris Pavano was too far from Candace Abrams to be dangerous, correct?
I do believe that is true.
You examined the position of his body in relation to the chair to form your conclusion, correct?
Not only that, but that was part of it.
But you never actually saw where Pavano was standing that night, correct? Only where he fell?
Only his body, yes.
So there's not any sure way to say how close he was to the mother then, correct?
Although there was no sure way, all the evidence pointed towards it.
I see. Now, you also, you determined in your final conclusion that Pavano had fired from the, not Pavano, excuse me, Jordan Abrams had fired from the middle step, correct?
That was my conclusion.
And this was because, in part, because the casings were on the middle step, correct?
That is correct.
But you didn't take into account any external factors, such as kicking, correct?
I did not.
So it's possible then that the casings could have just been kicked down to the middle step. Isn't that true?
There's no evidence that they were, but it was possible.
Thank you, Your Honor. No further questions.
Any redirect?
No redirect, Your Honor.
You're excused, thank you.
At this time, Your Honor, the prosecution rests.
Thank you, gentlemen. Defense ready?
Your Honor, at this time, I'd like to call Remy Abrams to the stand.
Consider yourselves sworn, please.
Good evening, Remy.
Good evening.
How old are you?
I'm 16.
And what is your relationship to Jordan Abrams?
She's my mom.
And how would you describe your relationship with your mother?
Our relationship is really good. We have a little argument sometimes, but I love her.
Did you have any disputes on the night of the incident?
Yeah, we had one.
Objection, Your Honor. Leading.
Response?
Your Honor, I can rephrase the question. So on August 30th, 2013, how did that night start for you?
Well, my mom and I had an argument about my bedtime.
And what was that dispute?
I wanted to stay up and watch a movie with her, but she sent me up to bed. She checked in on me later that night, though.
And did she say anything when she checked on you?
No, she rushed back out of my room because I thought I heard Nana shout, but then I heard beeping noises and noises that sounded like gunshots.
And how did you react?
I jumped out of my bed and I went to the railing, and Jada, my twin, was there too. But she went back to her room because we saw invaders, and then but I stayed.
Were you injured in any way that night?
No, thankfully my mom acted quickly enough so that none of us got hurt.
And can you briefly tell me what your mother did?
She was standing next to me up on the top step, and then she shot down and hit one of the intruders. Then as she was going downstairs, she shot into the ceiling, and then shouted to drop any weapons and get down.
And did she shoot any more after that?
No, she went to go take care of our Nana.
Did you recognize the intruder that was shot?
Once I was downstairs, I could see that it was Chris Pavano.
And how did you know it was him?
I could tell because of his crazy-looking hair. It was too dark to see anything else.
And what was your reaction to all of this chaos?
Well, after things had calmed down, I went downstairs to help my mom. She told me to call 911, but I forgot. There was a lot of stress then, and Jada and I had to help out.
Did your mother decide to call 911?
She pulled out her phone to call, but then there was a knock on the door.
And who knocked on the door?
An officer.
And how did you know what to do that night?
Well, our mom has given us a lot of training in high-pressure situations like floods, intruders, fire. So Jada and I know what to do.
And how do you feel about the training today?
I'm really grateful towards our mom.
Objection, Your Honor. Relevance.
Your Honor, I believe the training she went through is relevant to today's case because she knew how to react during the night of the incident.
I'll overrule it.
So how did you feel about the training today?
I feel very grateful towards our mom for preparing us and protecting us with the training. She just wants us to be safe.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Carlson?
Yes, Your Honor. fair to say that you and your family weren't liked by the locals at Cranberry Shores, right?
I wouldn't say that.
But there were many times when you were at the beach that locals would make fun of you, correct?
They wouldn't really make fun of us. I mean, we had our little arguments.
But isn't it true that while you were surfing on the beach with your father watching you, 4 teens would make fun of you, correct?
Objection, Your Honor. I fail to see how this is relevant.
Your Honor, this goes to the premeditation of Jordan Abrams as he was observing these kids being harassed by these 4 teenagers.
I gotta see where you go with this objection overruled.
So regardless, let's talk about the evening of August 30th, 2013. You state that you were awoken by the sound of a beeping noise and gunshots, correct?
Correct.
After you heard this beeping noise, you went to the balcony, correct?
Correct.
And at the balcony was where you were able to identify your mother, correct?
She was standing right with me.
So yes or no, you were able to identify her, right?
She was standing next to me, yes.
So after you recognized your mother, you then saw her hold out her gun and point it downward, correct?
I mean, yeah, it happened really fast.
And it was at that time that you saw her pull the trigger, discharging a bullet, correct?
Correct.
Now, were the lights on at this time when you observed your mother holding that gun out?
No.
And to the best of your knowledge, when you arrived at that balcony, did you ever hear your mother give a verbal warning to the teens down below?
I don't really know. It all happened so fast.
But to the best of your knowledge, yes or no, did you ever hear your mother give a verbal warning to the teens down below?
No.
And this was a situation you were prepared for, right?
Yeah.
And this was because many months before August 30th, your mother began preparing you for break-in situations, correct?
Yes, in other situations.
And in this, specifically the break-in situations, it was then where you would go with your mother to the gun range, right?
The gun range.
Objection, Your Honor. I fail to see the relevance in this.
Your Honor, once again, this goes to the premeditation of Jordan Abrams, the timeline between the bad blood with the locals and him training training her 2 kids about using guns and break-in situations. I see it's very relevant in today's case.
Any response?
No response, Your Honor.
I'm actually gonna sustain it because you actually objected on this on direct. I let it in, but you're gonna be limited because of your objection before.
Sure, Your Honor. Thank you. So, while you were at the gun range, never once did you observe your mother fire off that taser at any of the targets, correct?
No, well, we were at a gun range, so no.
But yes or no, never once did you observe your mother fire that taser off at any of the targets.
No.
So, let's move on. Let's go back to that evening. After your mother fired those shots, you state that you were able to identify Chris Pavano, correct?
Once I was downstairs, yes.
And you were able to identify Chris Pavano by his crazy hair, correct?
Correct.
And you even go so far to say that Chris Pavano's hair was hard to mistake, correct?
I mean, it was pretty crazy, so.
Now just to be clear, the lights were still off at this time, right?
Yes.
And it was then after you were able to identify Chris Pavano, you went down the rest of the stairs and you turned that light switch on, right?
I was already downstairs when I could recognize Chris Pavano.
And after you turned that light switch on, you saw Chris Pavano on the floor, right?
Yes.
And it was at that time, I'm assuming, since you saw someone laying on the ground, you picked up that phone and you dialed 911, right?
No, I did not call 911.
Never once that evening did you pick up the phone and dial 911.
No.
And did you ever observe your mother pick up that phone and dial 911?
She picked up her phone.
That's not what I asked you. I simply asked you if you ever observed your mother pick up her phone and put it to her ear and dial 911.
Objection, Your Honor. I believe the opposing attorney is being argumentative.
I think that's the purpose of cross. Proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor. Would you like me to repeat the question? Never once did you see your mother pick up that phone and dial 911 that evening, right?
No.
And never once did you see your little sister pick up that phone and dial 911, right?
Right.
And never once did you see your grandmother pick up that phone and dial 911, right?
Well, my grandmother was in shock, so
You're not an expert in today's case, are you?
no.
Therefore, you cannot determine if your grandmother was actually in shock that evening, correct? And you are aware that shock is a medical conclusion, right?
Objection, Your Honor. I believe the opposing attorney didn't let my witness finish the question, or answer the question.
Your Honor, the witness did give an answer, however, it was not verbal. Therefore, she did shake her head yes, but did not provide the court with a verbal answer.
The question was, are you a medical expert?
Yes, Your Honor.
And you were saying that the witness shook her head yes, that she was a medical expert?
She did, Your Honor.
Okay, I must have missed that. So,
Right.
ask the question again. Let's go.
So, you were not able to tell exactly if your grandmother was in shock that evening, right?
Well, she couldn't say anything. She was in shock.
But once again, you are not a medical expert in today's case, right?
Right.
And therefore, you cannot determine if someone is or is not in shock, right?
Right.
Thank you. No further questions at this time, Your Honor.
Any redirect?
No redirect, Your Honor.
Your excuse, thank you. Who's starting next, please?
Your Honor, we'd like to call Jesse Ryan to the stand.
Consider yourself sworn, please.
Good evening, Ms. Ryan.
Good evening.
What is your current occupation?
I'm a forensics reconstructionist in the crime scenes analysis.
And what does your job entail?
My job entails going for crime scenes and analyzing it and reconstructing for court cases like today.
And what education have you received for your career?
Well, I have a bachelor's degree from Monmouth University in criminal justice and a master's from John Jay College for forensic science.
And for the benefit of the jury, could you please explain what forensic science is?
Forensic science is the delineation of scientific methods in helping to solve cases.
Have you received any recognition for your work?
I certainly have. I have an award from 2010 for defense, and I actually have an award in 2004, 7, and 10 again for crime scene reconstruction.
And what jobs have you held in your field?
Well, I've had from the Metropolitan City Police Department a detective for 10 years.
And what happened after those 10 years?
After I was then promoted to a homicide detective for additional 10 years.
And what does being a homicide detective entail?
A homicide detective entails going to crime scenes ranging from manslaughter to gunshot victims.
Are you currently employed?
I certainly am. I'm self-employed at Ryan's Consulting.
And what experience do you have in ballistics?
From being a homicide detective, I've been trained in handling guns and handling gunshot victims.
And what is the science of ballistics?
The science of ballistics is the analyzing of gunshots and the projectiles.
Your Honor, at this time, I'd like to offer Mrs. Ryan as an expert in crime scene reconstruction and ballistics.
Objection, Your Honor. This witness is not recognized by this court today as an expert in crime scene reconstruction, but rather in crime scene investigation, pursuant to stipulation 15.
Counsel, stipulation 15 says Jesse Ryan's an expert in crime scene investigation and firearms identification. Is that what you're offering her as?
Yes, Your Honor. So how are you involved in today's case?
Well, I was brought independently on behalf of John, Mrs. Abrams.
And how did you begin your investigation?
I first read through Detective Singer's and Keeler's work, and then I also did.
And did you construct any investigation?
I certainly did. On September 30th, I did a walkthrough of the home, taking documentation, experimentation, and photographs.
And what was your experimentation?
I did an experiment with double hit using a Glock 17. This is where I tested the velocity of a gun to see if it goes through two objects.
And why is this relevant?
This is relevant because Mrs. Abrams stated that she feared the intruder would get any closer to her mother, it would then hit her and the mother.
And besides outside experimentation, what did you find inside of Jordan Abrams' home?
When I walked through, there was a broken door panel glass lying down that Detective Singer did not know.
And what caused this glass to shatter?
When the intruders entered, they used a broomstick, so therefore the broomstick broke the glass.
And who used the broomstick to break the glass?
Pavone was holding the broomstick, so therefore he did.
Did you find anything else?
I certainly did. When I walked through, there was bullets lying on the floor.
So, were these casings ever moved?
That's the thing. It was not detailed in Detective Singer's report, so I could not tell.
And did the detective miss anything else?
He did. He said that there was GSR residue left on Mrs. Abrams, but the thing is, GCR is dry and sticky, it tends to fall off.
And were there any inconsistencies in Singer's work?
Yes. Singer neglected to report and save the bulletin valid in the scene, making it an independent analysis virtually impossible. And he also had inconsistencies in his testimony in regards to Mrs. Abrams. Well, Mrs. Abrams' testimony.
And what are your final conclusions on the case?
My final conclusion is on August 30th, Mrs. Abrams, in an effort to protect her mother and family, incapacitated the victim.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Certainly, Your Honor. May I proceed? You said on direct that you took photographs of the scene. You never included those with your affidavit in today's case, right? So you chose to leave that information out,
I chose the most important evidence.
but you chose to leave out photographs of the scene, right? As an expert, you'd agree it's important to remain unbiased at all times, right?
Certainly.
You'd say that you remained unbiased throughout all times of your investigation, right?
Yes, I don't let outside influences intervene with my cases.
You read all the witness affidavits and depositions, correct?
I read Detective Singer's and Peter's.
So you didn't read anyone else's affidavits to gain any information?
Well, Detective Singer and Peeler were first on the scene, so I thought it was best to use their affidavits.
So you're saying you didn't use any of the information from Jordan Abrams' witness statement? You didn't use any information from Remy Abrams' witness statement?
No.
So your only account of the night was from Detectives Singer and Peeler, isn't that right?
Yes, that's correct.
But yet you still came up with conclusions that contradicted Detective Singer's conclusions,
Through
right?
my experimentation.
Objection, Your Honor. I believe this is a mischaracterization of my words.
Response?
Your Honor, I'm simply asking if her her conclusions contradicted those of the only witness statement she used.
Actually, I think your question was her contradiction. She contradicts Peeler, right?
Both Detective Peeler and Singer.
Yeah, we'll rule your objection.
Thank you.
Can you please repeat your question?
So your conclusions contradicted both Detective Singer and Peeler, right?
Well, through my experimentation I carried out, those experiments concluded that they were wrong. The experiments and the facts and the evidence concluded.
Did your experiment involve reconstructing where Mr. Jordan Abrams was?
No, I reconstructed the Glock 17.
Are you aware that this court today does not even recognize you as an expert in the field of crime scene reconstruction? But you still created a specific incident reconstruction, isn't that right?
Yes, I thought it was beneficial.
You created that reconstruction without using all the affidavits and depositions of the witnesses, correct?
Correct.
Since you didn't use their affidavits, I assume you reached out to question all of them.
I don't want any bias in my thing, so I tried to only use the evidence that was presented that was in the house. And I don't need anyone else's influences to analyze my
But you decided not to reach out to anyone to ask any questions.
case. No, because I was independently investigating.
You didn't reach out to ask Miss Abrams about what happened on that night from her point of view.
I did because she was an eyewitness at the crime scene, so I thought it was beneficial to my case to use an eyewitness that was there at the moment at the time.
Telling the court today that it was beneficial for you to use a questioning, not under oath, but it was not beneficial to use her affidavit, which is sworn and under oath. Could you provide a verbal answer for the court?
No,
So, no, it's not beneficial to use her affidavit, is that what you're saying?
no, I'm saying it's beneficial. Can you please use the question?
Are you telling the court that you found it was beneficial to use a non-under oath questioning of the defendant, Jordan Abrams, but it was not beneficial to use her affidavit, which was sworn and under oath?
It's beneficial to use the affidavit sworn under oath.
Would you like to amend your previous testimony as to you not using that beneficial piece of affidavit?
Let's use the court.
What was that, Ms.?
If it suits the court.
Let the record reflect that Ms. Jessie Ryan is amending her testimony to state that she did in fact use the affidavit of Ms. Jordan Abrams.
I think you need to elicit that information. All I've gotten from her is if it pleased the court. So I think I need a question and an answer as opposed to a testimony from counsel.
Certainly. Are you saying that you did in fact use Ms. Abrams' affidavit for your investigation?
I used her statement when I asked her a question.
So you're aware that Ms. Abrams claims she fired from the top of the steps, right?
Yes.
You're also aware that Detective Singer, whose affidavit you also used, stated that she fired from the middle of the steps. What was that?
I do recall reading that in this.
But yet you still sided with the defendant,
Yes.
coming to your conclusion.
Yes.
And once again, you remain unbiased throughout.
Yes, I do.
You're also aware that Ms. Jordan Abrams states that she saw Chris Pavano holding that broomstick like a rifle, right?
I don't recall asking her those questions per se, but I don't recall.
Did you not just state previously that you did use her affidavit and read
I
through
used it on certain parts that were beneficial to, but I didn't focus on those parts.
So you didn't read it thoroughly and through.
I focused in on the parts that I thought was most beneficial in this case.
So then are you aware that she stated that she didn't have much time to react that night when she heard some noise downstairs?
Well, I believe it was a stressful situation, so
Are you aware that Jordan Abrams, after hearing that noise, the noise downstairs, proceeded to do several things before actually pulling out her Glock 17 and aiming downwards?
well, I wasn't there at the crime scene, so I would.
But you did read her affidavit, right?
Yes, I did.
So you're aware that before looking downstairs, she first checked on both of her kids in their bedrooms, right? You're aware that both of their bedrooms are on opposite sides of that hallway, upstairs, right?
Well, that's Mrs. Abrams.
1 minute.
Are you aware that the two kids' bedrooms are on opposite sides of the hallway?
Yes, yes.
And you're aware that after checking on both kids, going back and forth across the hallway, that's when she made it to the stairs and looked downwards, right? That's when she saw Chris Pavano advancing all the way across the room, right?
Yes.
She shot when he was several feet away, in her own words.
Yes.
In your final reconstruction, you stated that this incident occurred at 11:10 p.m., isn't that right?
Yes, I did.
Are you aware that none of the affidavits which you read and reviewed stated that this incident occurred that late?
Yes, I do. Because when I did my crime scene investigation, it can't all be the same because I wasn't at the crime scene.